Okay then guys, did you spot it? What do you think? What do you think is our new sound for today? It's this one. Well done. Now, can you remember from the Alpha Blocks video, what sound do these three letters make when they're together? They make the I sound. Ready? My turn. I. Your turn. My turn. I. Your turn. Nice, guys. Well done. Now, I said this was special today. What do you notice that's a bit special about today's new sound? This one has got something that none of the other sounds we've learnt so far has got. What is it? Well done. This one has got 1, 2, 3 letters working together to make one sound. Now, so far we've learnt single sounds, we've learnt digraphs, where we have 2 letters working together to make one sound. This one has got 3 letters working together to make one sound, and we call those kinds of sounds a trigraph. Can you say that word for me? Trigraph. Well done. A trigraph is 3 letters working together to make one sound. So, it's quite a lot to remember, guys, isn't it? I mean, we found our digraphs tricky enough. Now we've got to be able to spot a trigraph in a word and remember all 3 letters that we need to use if we want to write this sound down. Now, if we were to write this down, would it need sound buttons or a sound tile? Sound tile, well done, because it's a trigraph. Now, would my sound tile go just under 2 of the letters? All 3 of them. So it would be an extra long sound tile, wouldn't it? It would go all the way from under the I, all the way along to under the I. Okay? I. Now, in the Alpha Blocks video, they made lots and lots of words, didn't they? And I love the way that the Alpha Blocks do it because they show you how joining different letters together and sounding them out makes words. That's what spelling and reading is all about. We're going to use that skill today. We are going to see if we can make some words using the I sound. Now, just like our other digraphs that we've been practicing, our new trigraph is made up of letters that we already know how to form. We already know how to write them, don't we? We've practiced our I, we've practiced our G, and we've practiced our H. So we know how to write all of those already. So I'm not going to have a little chat with you about how we write them down, but we are going to try our very best to write them really neatly when, whoops, it's a bit wonky, when we write some words today. Okay. The way we're going to make use of our new trigraph I is we are going to make some wriggly worms. To make a wriggly worm, you are going to need some paper and you need to cut a worm shape out of your paper. And then once you've cut your worm shape out, I'd like you to fold your worm in half and then fold it in half again, okay? Like that. Once you've folded it, push down along those edges so you get a nice straight line and then fold it back out again and there's your wriggly worm. Now these wriggly worms today aren't just going to be any old worms. Oh no, guess what kind of worms they're going to be, guys? You know what we're going to do, don't you? These wriggly worms are going to be I wriggly worms. So they are only allowed to have words with the I sound in them written on them, okay? Now, we folded it into sections because they're going to help us think about the different sounds that we can hear in each word. Each section is for a different sound. The alpha blocks, they're all separate, aren't they? And they only make a word when they hold hands together. So that's what we're going to think about today. We're going to think about the separate sounds that make up words, okay? Now, the first piece of your wriggly eye worm is for you to draw a face on, because we need to have a face on our worm, don't we, guys? So the first section, the first space, that's where you can draw me a lovely smiley face. I'm going to give my worm an eye and a big smile. There he is, there's my worm. And then in these sections, that's where we're going to have a go at writing some I words, okay? Now, we're going to practice them together before you go off on your own. But when you go off and have your own go, you can either watch Alpha Blocks again and use some of the words that they come up with on there to help you write some I wriggly worms. You can use some of the words that we're going to use together now, or see if you can think of some of your own, okay? Are you ready? Let's start off with sigh. That's a sigh, isn't it? You sigh when you're a bit tired. A sigh. So let's put sigh into our wriggly sound worm. Here is where we're going to write our first sound. So what's the first sound in sigh? Can you hear it? Sigh. I. Sorry guys, I can't do all of my hands at once. Sigh. S, I, s. My first sound is my s. So I'm going to write my s nice and neatly in the first section of my wriggly eye worm. Okay, what's the next sound you can hear in sigh? S, I. Hey, it's that new trigraph, isn't it? So, what letters do I need to use to write down my I sound? I've got them up here, haven't we? It's our trigraph. So I'm going to write 3 letters in this section. Remember, each section isn't for a letter, it's for a sound. So make sure your sections are big enough that you can fit your sounds in if you have to use a digraph or a trigraph, for example. And look, S, I, sigh. I've written the word sigh. Now, is there any other sounds that you can hear in sigh? S, I. No, there isn't, is there? So do I need to write a sound in this last section on my wriggly worm? No, I can just leave that empty. If I don't need another sound, I don't need to write it down. Hey, there's my first wriggly eye worm. S, I. What could I write onto my sounds to just double check I've got them right? My sound buttons, well done. So I'm going to put a button under because that's a sound on its own. And then I needs a tile, okay, because it's a trigraph. Sigh. Okay, one word is done. One wriggly worm complete. Get yourself another wriggly worm and let's have a go at writing another word. Now, if you don't want to make your wriggly worms out of paper today, you could just draw them straight into your book and make sure you split the body up into 4 sections so you can still have a face at the beginning and then you've still got space to write your words in sounds in the rest of the worm's body. Okay. If you don't want to draw or you don't want to cut them out of paper like I've done today, then you could use magnetic letters instead and make some words using those for me. But it would be fab if you could still draw yourself a little phoneme frame. So a little track. I suppose it looks like a track, but we call them phoneme frames, don't we, when we're doing our spelling. You want one that's going to have 3 spaces in for you to put your magnetic letters in, okay? And you might need to make them quite big because magnetic letters can be quite chunky. So make sure you're using some kind of phoneme frame if you decide not to make your wriggly worms. It would still be fab if you could use some kind of frame because that will help you think about the different sounds that you can hear, okay? If you don't want to use wriggly worms or draw worms or magnetic letters, then you could always go outside and get some chalk and maybe draw me some worms on the floor to write your words in. Or hey, just write your words using your chalk on the concrete outside. I don't mind, guys. Whichever way you'd like to do it is fine by me, as long as you're practicing using your new Trigraph today. Right, let me give this next worm a big smiley face. Here he is. Our next I word we're going to try and write on our wriggly worm is fight. Oh dear, what's a fight? When someone falls out, someone might try and push or hurt each other, we might say that they were having a fight. So let's think about our sounds. First section is for our first sound, isn't it? What's the first sound you can hear in fight? Fight. I, t. Well done. It's a. And of course, like always, guys, if you come across a sound and you can't remember how to write it down or what it looks like, get those phoneme mats out, guys. Use them to help you. That's absolutely fine, okay? Fight. So, here's my... Okay. Next section of my wriggly worm is for my next sound. So I've got... What's the next sound you can hear in fight? I. Well done. Now, what's our new trigraph, guys? How do we write the I sound down? It's R, I. Ooh, let me hold it a bit steadier. G. Well done. And remember, each section is for a different sound, not a different letter. So I've written my whole trigraph in this next section of my worm, okay? I, t. What's the last sound in fight? I, t. Well done. Fight. Okay, let's check it with our sound buttons. I, t. Does that sound right? Sounds good to me. Fight. I, t. 2 wriggly worms. Let's do one more together before you go and try and do some on your own. Okay, here we go. I've got one more. I'm going to stick him on there. Now, if when you're doing your wriggly worms, if you think of a word and it's got more than 3 sounds in, so these ones that we're practicing together, they've all got 3 sounds in, haven't they? It. If they've got more than 3 sounds in, what do you think you need to do with your worms? You need to add some more sections on, don't you? Okay. So, for example, if you were going to try and write fright, like, oh, I got a scare, I got a fright, that would be I, t. We'd need one more section on our body. But you can sort that out, can't you, guys? You can add an extra section on if you find you need one. Okay, let's give him a face. Big smile. Okay, this time we're going to try and write sight. Sight. So when we're talking about how well someone can see, we're talking about their sight. Okay, sight. What's the first sound you can hear in sight, guys? Well done. Where's it going to go? First space on my wriggly worm for my first sound in the word. Sight. Well done. Or if you're using a phoneme frame and magnetic letters, first sound in the first space of your frame, okay? Sight. S. I. Well done. And how do we write that I sound down? It's our new trigraph. So, I. And S, I, t. What's my last sound I need? S, I, t. Well done. How am I going to check it? Let's put our sound buttons on. S, I, t. Well done. Sight. Hey, We've got 3 fabulous wriggly worms here. Good job, guys. Now, have a little look for me. Where do you notice our I sound is usually found? Is it ever coming at the beginning? No, this is one of those sounds. This trigraph isn't a way we would ever use to write the I sound down at the beginning of a word. If you can hear an I sound at the beginning of a word, then we use a different way to write it down, okay? This trigraph we can use in the middle of words, like in fight and sight, fight and sight. We can use it in the middle. Or we sometimes use it at the end, like in sigh, I, or hi, I. It's at the end. So beginning or end for this trigraph, middle or end for this trigraph, never at the beginning. Okay. Okay then. Now, it's over to you guys. Can you go and make some wriggly worms for me? And like I said, you choose. If you want to make some worms like I have, fold them in half and then in half again to make your 4 sections. Write your words in them. That would be lovely. Or draw yourself a worm outline in your home learning book. Split the body up into 4 and write some words down for me. Or if you don't want to have the wormy element to it, that's absolutely fine. Make yourself a phoneme frame and you could practice just writing your words in there, or maybe using magnetic letters to help you. Or get outside with some chalk and write on the concrete for me. I don't mind how you do it, but I would love it if you could practice writing today's new trigraph. Just remind me before I send you off, what is a trigraph? 3 letters making 1 sound. Well done. Now, this is a tricky one, guys, okay? This is only our first lesson on it, so don't worry if it seems complicated at the moment. We will definitely be practicing this one again when we're all back together in school. Okay, guys? Go have fun making me some wriggly worms, and I will see you after break, ready for maths.